HO Talk Show.
I am HO Talk Show. Thank you, family, for joining us. You could be anywhere in the world, but you are here with us. So tell a friend, because as always, speaking of being anywhere in the world, but being here with us, we always take Seville to the world and bring the world to Seville, and a community partner that does that as well is none other than the Virginia Film Festival. And you all should know by now, every time this time of year is when we invite our good friends on the airwaves to talk about this year's film lineup of yet another year of great representation through film and cinematic adventures on the big screens, right? Whether it's smaller documentaries or larger budget films, it is all represented and brought here to Charlottesville, Virginia. And so I'm talking about the Virginia Film Festival, October 22nd through the 26th of this year, 2025. And as always, Artistic Director Ilya Tovbis is here with us. Ilya, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, anytime. So, as I stated, we are in the year 2025, and you are still Artistic Director. So I have to ask, what keeps you going? What is making you excited about yet another year of the film festival?
Well, I think you gave a great introduction. It's really about bringing the world of cinema and bringing the world at large to our community, having our community celebrate each other and culture and creativity from all around. So I think every year, we are going into our 38th season as a festival. I've not been here quite that long. But every year it's an amazing set of stories and visions put to screen, guests that can talk about the creative process. And so that's really what excites me, is the celebration of important storytelling and fantastical visions.
Awesome, good stuff. And let's kind of dive right in it. As far as this year, when you think about the series and the themes that are pertinent, to where we are right now as a community. Because again, for those that don't know, the Virginia Film Festival, draws not only patrons, but it draws, the film industry worldwide. And so when you look at 2025 and you were thinking about the series and the themes, what was at the heart of the planning this year?
So our planning begins in a very similar place, but it ends somewhere different every year. So we are, to zoom out for, I know many of your listeners have been to the festival. For those that haven't, we end up with a program like this year of over 125 films, over 100 guests, and these are guests that are drawn from Hollywood and from New York, but also from Poland, from France, from Ukraine. Really the cream of the crop when it comes to filmmakers of all stripes. We're talking about directors, actors, but also craftspeople. We're talking about musicians, editors, sound mixers, everyone that's really behind the magic of movie making. And so to back up to your original question, where we start is we're looking for the best of the best. We're looking for original visions. We're looking for unique voices that are telling the story of our times, which is very broad. I realize that. And that gives us sort of a broad framework to begin with. And then we glom onto is the actual films, the actual filmmakers that we're bringing in. So whether it's the Bruce Springsteen film that we're kicking off the festival with, whether it's Rental Family story that features an American actor, Brendan Fraser, but in Japan, whether it's Train Dreams, our centerpiece film, based on a novel by Dennis Johnson. There's so many different ways in, and that's really what makes each year special is again, we start in a similar place. Our series, whether it's Black excellence or Indigenous cinema of the Americas or environmental, are broadly similar, but the films that fill in those buckets are quite different.
Gotcha. Good stuff. And so let's talk about some of the highlights coming up this year. If you kind of want to just go through the schedule, which again starts Wednesday, October 22nd, ends on Sunday, October 25th. What are some of the highlights that you think, maybe at least for our listening audience, right, and maybe the Charlottesville area, let's say, even though we're broadcast streamed everywhere, what are some of the highlights maybe from each day that really stands out to you that you want Charlottesville to know about?
Sure. So I think what might make sense is I'll start with the big films. And again, for many of your listeners, I'm sure they're familiar, but if you're in the Charlottesville area, we have our gala activities all happen at the Paramount Theater, Cinema Palace, over 1,000 seats. These are our biggest, usually very commercial, large-scale films. So for example, we kick off the festival with Springsteen, which is about Bruce Springsteen. It's called Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. And it's an interesting film. On one hand, it's a biopic, but it's not about the totality of his life or his career. It's a really particular moment in time when he is on the precipice of international stardom. He is already at this point well recognized. He's on the radio, but he hasn't quite reached that final level of intense glare of the spotlight. And he's struggling a little bit with this notion of just how popular he's about to become. And at the heart of that struggle is everything from personal issues with his family and with his dad to some mental health struggles he's dealing with. And a lot of it is also about to what degree you kind of have to sell out in order to be an artist at that level, and to what degree you become a brand and really a vessel for other people rather than a vessel for your own artistry. And he's going back and forth. And this is in his real life when he's putting down the tracks for Nebraska, which for Springsteen fans you'll know is one of his more introspective albums. Okay. And so he is really struggling with, at the same time as he's putting down tracks for like Born in the USA, which we all know and recognize today, tracks like Nebraska as well, which is a little bit quieter and more introspective. And I think all of us, whether we're on the precipice of international stardom or not, can empathize with this journey of who you are to the outside world versus who you are to yourself, and how you square those two elements. So I think that's really at the heart of our opening night film, which comes from Scott Cooper, himself a Virginia filmmaker. He's a member of our advisory board as well. Oh, nice. People will know him from Crazy Heart and other films like that. So that's the opening night film.
Started with a bang.
Was that?
Starting with a bang.
Starting with a bang, exactly. And it's one of, I'm sure we'll return a few of these, it's one of many films that has a musical through line. We have a lot of focus on music and musicians and the import of that art form within the film festival this year. The next night, the big kind of commercial studio fare is going to be Christy. And this is a film featuring Sydney Sweeney in a very different role than we've seen her in. This is not Euphoria, this is nothing like that. She completely transforms into the real life story of Christy Martin, who, for those of us that are boxing fans might remember in the 90s, Christy Martin was essentially the woman that revolutionized prize fighting and became really the first sort of big purse female fighter, and worked with King and other promoters to get some of the biggest televised fights in the boxing ring. And at the same time as she was really overcoming some major hurdles there, she had a pretty harrowing experience outside of the ring, which also became sort of big national news. She ended up marrying her trainer, who was 25 years her senior. That's where she gets her last name from. And he eventually became a tormentor, and there was domestic abuse and other pretty horrific elements. And she is the sort of tantamount survivor. And this is all a story about survival and perseverance. Again, both in the ring and out. It's a pretty incredible story. It's harrowing in parts. It's all about survival and overcoming in other parts. And so, yeah, that's going to be the Thursday night, the big film. On Friday night, we have our centerpiece screening, which is Train Dreams, and I mentioned really briefly earlier, this is based on Dennis Johnson's novella, and that's on Saturday night. Friday night, let me back up a little bit. This is going to be Jake Kelly, featuring George Clooney, across from Adam Sandler. And George Clooney, as we all know, is sort of a big name actor, and in this film he plays a big name actor, but going by a slightly different name, the name Jake Kelly. And he is also kind of struggling to separate his fame and his legacy from his personal being, and kind of trying to figure out what's the mask we wear for the outside world versus who we really are inside. And he's on a European sort of whirlwind tour. His manager is Adam Sandler. And for us at the festival, this is going to be a really special evening. We're doing something different and a departure from anything we've done before. So we're bringing in the composer of the music for this film, and this is Nicholas Britell, who is truly one of the top composers working in Hollywood. You don't have to take my word for it. He's 3-time Academy nominated, he's multi-time Grammy nominated, he's an Emmy-winning composer. Just some of his titles, if you've seen any of Barry Jenkins's movies, like Moonlight that ended up winning the Oscar, that's him. If Beale Street Could Talk is him. Secession, if you're familiar with that theme song or much of the music from Secession, that's him. And then otherwise, he also works with major pop stars, everyone from Pusha T to Christina Aguilera, Florence and the Machine.
Wow.
He's really kind of one of the top musical minds. I rarely use the word genius, but I think in his case it is actually apt. But what's going to be special about that evening, he's not just going to be talking about his composition. We're going to have him, he's a Steinway artist, seated at the Steinway piano in the Paramount Theater.
Yeah.
And for an extended conversation, he's going to be walking us through the process of how he composes music, how he makes us emote and feel all of the elements. It's so important to any film if you've seen, if you're sort of pulled in a direction or another, put a little ear to the music going on underneath. It has so much to do with how we feel and how quickly our heart beats and how much we empathize or don't with what's on screen, and I think he's really a master of it. So this is going to be happening for nearly an hour after the screening of Jay Kelly. He's going to be up there with the piano playing and talking, and this is going to be live recorded for Awards Chatter, which is one of the top podcasts in the industry. This comes from the Hollywood Reporter's executive awards editor, Scott Feinberg, who's going to be in conversation with him. It's a very special evening, Friday night.
Okay, and so that is connected to the film. So your film ticket allows you to experience the post performance.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So the performance, the conversation, the film, that's all one ticket.
Awesome.
And we do hope people stay for the whole experience. It's going to be a bit of a long evening, but well worth your time.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. Per usual. And so when you were talking about seeing Clooney, with Sandler, like that right there, like I'm like, that's going to be interesting. Just to see how they play off of each other. It's kind of like two distinct styles, right? So I'm sure that's going to be interesting. But also when you were talking about the Springsteen movie, it made me think about some of the elements there artistically, is also what makes up the diversity of the film festival. Meaning that you have options for youth. There's animated options. There's like local students and high school filmmakers, and there's even an option where you give discounts for even like student tickets and things like that. So I'm just thinking about like the different layers, the different levels of filmmaking, and how you all like to bring everybody in. So maybe talk a little bit about that as far as the different options that you have for the film festival this year for the youth, maybe educational for new filmmakers and so on.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you asked. I mean, again, we see the festival as meant to be a reflection and expansion of our community. And what I mean by that is you want to see a version of your own story reflected on screen. And our community is not singular. We have many different people, many different backgrounds. We want you to see something that feels of yourself and of your story. And simultaneously, we want to be able to give you an entry point. If you're interested in Chinese society and mythology, we have something for you. If you're interested in high school filmmaking, experimental filmmaking, animated filmmaking, all the things you mentioned, we want the festival to be able to give that to you. That's why it's important when we talk about those 125 films, it's not just to put a high number up there. It's in order to have many different layers, many different perspectives, many different stories that might resonate with you a little bit differently than they do with me, and that's kind of the whole intent. In terms of ways to access it, I'm glad you brought up. So we have a number of different ways at it. First, we have a whole host of free programs. We have a day of free panels on Saturday at the Code Building. We have several free high school presentations. We also, if you are a UVA student, you get free tickets to the Arts Dollars program, so you can go on the website, click the free student tickets, and you're able to get up to a ticket to every film as long as they're still available, and that's free of charge. And then we do have, I'm glad you also mentioned educational perspectives. So something I mentioned, we have over 100 guests, and what we like to do with them, of course, we have Q&As and we have panels following the films. But if we're bringing somebody in from Paris, from Poland, from all these places, we want to make sure we're making the best use of their time, and they do as well. And one of the ways in which we do that is we connect them directly to our students and to local interested filmmakers. You don't have to be a student, you don't have to go to UVA, you can be a high school student, you can be a person interested just in general about furthering your own career, perhaps becoming a filmmaker, and that's done through our Connection Point program. So if you go onto our website, and it's right on the homepage, Connection Point, what this is a series of one-on-one mentorship programs So if you're interested, for example, in becoming a writer about film, we bring in national media from Hollywood Reporter and New York Times and so forth. We'll set you up for a one-on-one 30-minute mentorship session where you can talk about your artistic goals and career. If you're interested in being a director, we might pair you with director, editor, and so forth. So we're really looking to make the most of the time of the industry figures that we bring in by connecting them with people from the local community. So there are ways to do that. If you have young children, we have a family centerpiece screening, Arco, which is one of the animated films you mentioned. And so this is probably for kids 10 and up. Tweens, and I think teens might enjoy this one as well. It's a science fiction film. This won the best film at the most important animation film festival in the world, Annecy, which happens in France, and is produced by Natalie Portman, who also voices one of the characters there. And then most of what we do for out of the 125 or so films, 121 of them are brand new films that you cannot see streaming, you cannot see in theaters. Otherwise, and we make a couple of exceptions. One is for our repertory program, so if you're interested in films from the 70s and so forth, you can see them. We have a program with TCM, Turner Classic Movies, where we're bringing their primetime host, Ben Mankiewicz, and he talks with figures about those films. But the one I wanted to focus on right now is Sinners. Sinners, your audience might be familiar with. I think one of the most successful, one of the most important films of the year, and I mean successful both from a box office standpoint, just absolutely, did better than anyone could have imagined. There's a new film from Ryan Coogler, person behind Black Panther, featuring Michael B. Jordan playing two sets of twins. Beyond its box office success, this is a real cultural touchstone. It had to do with the Jim Crow South. It has elements of horror and elements of vampire components, but it kind of really pushed the form forward. And I think many people, of course, know Michael B. Jordan. It's hard not to if you follow the film. But there's a newcomer in this film who really shined, and that's Miles Caden. And we're bringing Miles Caden in. His first time as an actor on screen, but far from his first time. So he plays a musician. And in his real life, ever since he was 2 years old, ever since he could talk, he was singing on public stages. He's been on BET. He's been in Jay-Z's 444. He has viral fame for his take on Nina Simone songs. He's toured with a 5-time Grammy Award winner, Her. And he is a young man who is clearly a star on the rise. And in the film, he plays Michael B. Jordan's cousin, who's an aspiring musician. In real life, he is more than aspiring. He's an already here musician. So what he's going to be doing, we're going to do a reprisal of Sinners. You can watch it, whether again or if you haven't seen it, this is a good time to see it at the Paramount Theater on the big screen with other folks around. And then afterwards, in addition to talking about how he acted and how he played music, he's also going to bring his guitar and he's going to play from the stage of the Paramount. So this is a special event with Miles Caden and Sinners. And the goal here again is to show all the different types of activity we have in the festival. If that sounds great to you, come on down for that. If one of the other ones we mentioned sounds good to you, and we haven't even touched on the documentaries, some of the kind of more indie films as well.
Yeah. That is awesome. That sounds like a great time and a wonderful experience. As you said, for that breakout star that a lot of people are talking about right now, and so I want to see what his next moves are, and of course, folks are going to discover. That's one thing I love about the film festival is that you always discover things. So you may go into, looking for films that you think you like, but it always never ceases to amaze me every year when people say that they saw something that they otherwise probably would have never taken the time to rent it or to stop and watch it on TV, but because of how it was presented to them here through the film festival, that they're now a fan of maybe a new genre, so to speak.
I appreciate that. What I always recommend to people is we do have these really shiny objects, and I get excited about them too, don't get me wrong. The George Clooney's, the Adam Sandler, some of the big films. What I always recommend people, if you can go to 2, try to go 1 really big commercial film, some of the ones we've been talking about, and then dig a little bit deeper into the program because a little further down you have film. A lot of the big studio films will eventually come out in theaters, sometimes relatively soon after the festival, sometimes a few months down the line. But some of the more independent films, some of the more international films or documentaries, this might be your one and only chance, at least for a while and perhaps ever, to see them on the big screen, to see them in community. If you're kind of just scratching the surface of international cinema, something I always recommend to people is every country in the world gets to submit one and only film to compete in the Oscars for the best international film, for the best foreign language film.
Yeah.
And we have 14 of those official submissions playing this year. These are films everywhere from North Macedonia to Iceland to Brazil to South Korea. And so if any of that kind of sounds of interest to you, those particular cultures, or just kind of broadening your perspective on what stories are being told internationally, highly recommend checking some of those out.
Yeah. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, we are speaking with the Virginia Film Festival Artistic Director, Ilya Tovbis. And Ilya, as we said at the beginning, this is the year 2025, and you mentioned how, every year of planning, that it starts, with slightly different focus than what it ends with, right? Because it's such a drawn out process. That being said, I have to ask, as we sit here on an urban radio station, and and we are, faced with a time of what FCC rules are in place, like who they work for. We're at a time where freedom of speech is a hot topic, which is hard to believe in the year 2025, to where we're discussing those type of things. But it doesn't seem that the film festival has shied away at all from its mission and its vision, to educate people and to allow a platform to tell, like a diverse array of stories. So I'm just curious if you want to touch on that a bit about that mission and that vision, and how you're able to sort of keep that, in focus, while we're dealing with what we're dealing with now.
I think obviously, times are different today. The times will be different when we talk hopefully a year from now as it was a year ago. And so our mission broadly stays the same. It really is about representation of whatever you identify as, and so I don't think the festival as a whole is tilted in any direction. It's really a matter of, if you're interested in a certain kind of storytelling, a certain kind of genre, a certain kind of identity, we want to offer it to you, and then it's your choice. Are you attending the Black Excellence Series? Are you attending the Environmental Series? Are you attending some of these more commercial fare? Are you attending more independent fare? We're not trying to tell you what to go see. We're trying to give you a full menu of options,
right.
And then you're able to attend. But yeah, as you said, we haven't shied away from that. I don't think just because of what's happening in the world is changing, our own identities have changed. I think the way we appreciate them and celebrate them and want to talk about them perhaps has. And I think that's where the festival is still a sounding board. And so our core mission has not really shifted in that regard.
Yeah. And something I think that our listeners would like to hear too. Can you give us a couple of the highlights from the Black Excellence theme?
Yeah, of course. We talked about Sinners already, so that's definitely one on there. A few more that I'd love to mention. So Hedda is a film that I really enjoyed. Saw it last month at the Toronto International Film Festival, one of the biggest in the world. And this features Tessa Thompson.
She's amazing every year. I feel like y'all have a film of her every year. And
not quite amazing. Every year, but a few years back we had Passing here, and I think she has featured. So she's been in most of Nia DaCosta's film. This is Nia DaCosta once again coming back with Hedda. And it's a really interesting adaptation, but kind of a wild adaptation of the Henry Ibsen play of the same name. This time it's transported into 1950s England. There's a major gender twist and change as well that I won't quite give away, but it's a very fun sort of power play of a film. It centers on a very powerful woman who is a little bit of an outsider in a very elite community, but sort of maintains her force and her power and will not be restricted, and she refuses to let anyone define where she's going to go and what she's going to do. And it's a little bit kind of wicked. Not all of her choices are necessarily morally sound, but it is sort of very fun. It's very sleek, and part of what makes the film so incredible, it takes place mostly in this palatial mansion, and as I think many of us know, on film, very little of what you see is necessarily exactly what's there. It's usually a built environment, and the people that build this environment, they're called production designers, and just quite literally what it means is anything that you see actors walking through, anything that they're interacting with, how it's lit, how it's built, is done by the production designer. And so for that evening, we're bringing in the production designer of the film, Kara Brower, who really is one of the top of her craft. If you've seen Jordan Peele's Us, that was her. as well. She did all the sets for that. If you've seen many of the films from the Coen brothers or David Fincher, that's her as well. And so she's going to be kind of really lifting the curtain on that magic, that movie magic. And I kind of keep on returning to that, as I think we want to know a little bit more of how, we enjoy this film, we laugh at it, we engage with it, we have a really good time, and we kind of want to know a little bit how it's done, right? How the magician pulls that card out of his sleeve, out of her sleeve in this case. And for me, those are fascinating conversations. She's going to walk us through that process after Hedda from Nia DaCosta.
Good stuff. Good stuff as always, Ilya. Wanted to know if there's any of the awards that's going to be given out this year that you may want to touch on and highlight, because that's always an amazing piece, and I think it is also a very noble thing to do. And I'm always amazed at the folks that you can bring in from the world of film, right, and to be able to recognize them here in Charlottesville, right? Charlottesville, Virginia is a place for them to to be recognized, for their great achievement. So I think you mentioned Miles Canton is receiving one. And,
so Miles Canton's receiving one. Nicholas Bertel, we talked about. So a few of the people, Kara Brower as well. But one that we haven't touched on, the closing night film, Rental Family, that we talked about briefly with Brendan Fraser, who plays a sort of this is a real phenomenon in Japan and in some other places as well. There's actually a film out of Austria this year with a slightly similar plot, where people are hired to fill in roles in other people's lives. For example, Brendan Fraser might get hired to be someone's pretend husband, or be someone's pretend father, or their friend, or someone that's grieving for a loved one. Any of these kinds of things, hence the title Rental Family. And it's a very fun film, bittersweet, but altogether kind of a lovely film and a journey. This is going to be our closing night film, and we're bringing the director Hikari, who people might know her if you've seen the Netflix series Beef. She directed a lot of that. Also, her film 37 Seconds won at major festivals from Berlin to Toronto and so forth before. So she's coming in to represent that film in our closing night for our Breakthrough Director Award. And then another one that I want to point out is The Secret Agent. So this is the Oscar submission from Brazil, one of my favorite films of the year. It takes place in 1977 in Brazil, which for those that know our history, that was a time of dictatorship and authoritarian military rule in the country, and it centers on a professor played by Wagner Moura. For any of us that have watched Narcos, you might recognize him from there. Incredible actor. And he is in hiding. He is hiding his identity. He's sort of quietly on the run. He's looking to reunite with his family, who he's been distanced from. And while these are all really heavy themes, and it deals with some kind of intense historical moments, the film is conversely shot really brightly. Much of it actually happens during Carnival, and it really celebrates the dignity and the life and the sort of beauty of life and the glint of life, and our ability to smile even through tragedy, and to celebrate and to dance even through really difficult times. And at the heart of how this film is told is the cinematography of Evgenia Alexandrova. And I think she is sort of a microcosm of what we like to celebrate. So she was born in St. Petersburg. She got schooled as a cinematographer at La Famille in Paris, one of the top cinematography schools, and has since shot a lot of her work in Brazil. And we're thrilled that she's coming in to accept our craft award in cinematography that day, again, to talk us through how all the shots are done, how they're lit, how they decide where the camera's going to be placed, if it's zooming, if it's panning, all these kind of elements that I think we know instinctually are a key part of our viewing experience. But again, we might not realize everything that goes into those decisions on screen.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. And allow me to plug as well, too. I know that following the Sinners screening as well, downtown Charlottesville, there will be a community discussion at 7 p.m. I'm over at the Creator Hub on Water Street to talk about the cultural impact that you mentioned of the movie Sinners. So folks can go online to be able to get to reserve space at that discussion as well. Any of our listeners that want to be a part of that community discussion at Black Professional Network of Charlottesville, those reservations are available for the post-Sinners discussion of the Black excellence and cultural impact. So awesome. So besides that, getting tickets to that discussion, lastly, make sure people know how to get in touch with you guys, in regards to when tickets are available and, when to pick them up and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to visit our website. It's got everything. It's virginiafilmfestival.org. Tickets are on sale now. And I will mention many of these events do tend to be quite popular, so they're already going. I would not recommend waiting until the last moment, but even if you do, it's worth checking something out. I do actually want to plug, even if you see something that appears to be sold out at the moment, I highly recommend people just come to the theater. And we have these standby lines very often. We can't guarantee, but very often people get off the standby lines, are able to get last moment tickets if someone else doesn't show up. But the best thing to do is get your tickets in advance. Visit virginiafilmfestival.org. Tickets are on sale now, and the festival is October 22nd through 26th.
Beautiful, beautiful. Ilya, as always, great work, and looking forward to another year of the film festival. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.